All right, and we are live. So, welcome, Jonathan, in the pond, who is going to talk about maps. So, this will be a gentle introduction to maps, Jonathan, right?
Yep, I'm going to share my screen. I have
Wonderful.
quite a short presentation, and then I'll do more practical talking about particularly QGIS. But I think it might be helpful to talk about some general points to do with why we use maps in journalism and in data journalism. So it may seem obvious, but maps are just visualization. So we use data visualization, graphics anyway, but we add in location. And we add in location for a number of reasons. If you're using a visualization without map, then there are four things that you can show. You can show comparison between things, performances, times, eras, countries. You can show composition, how something's made up, like the government budget, how much they're spending on defense versus education versus social security, and then compare that to last year. You can show how a sample is distributed, and you can show the relationship between variables, so height and weight. You can show something between poverty and dental hygiene, let's say, or poverty and obesity, those sort of things, where you use a scatter plot and two variables. So those are things you would use a visualization for. But when we add in mapping and geolocation, we're also using the same four things in a slightly different way, but I think it helps to think of it in the same way. So we can compare this year with last year, or my country with yours, visually. We can show how political support is spread around a particular country or continent. We can see how the parts of the whole fit together geographically. And sometimes we can see relationships, or we want to show relationships between, let's say, how far north something is and how cold it is, or how far south, or all sorts of things you could show relationships between. So this is showing homicide rates, deaths per 100,000 of the local population. And the darker the plot, then the bigger the number. And that just simply shows Europe going as far, well, the wider Europe as far as Russia and Turkey, versus the United States as individual states. And you can see that from just comparing that the southern states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri are far worse than anything Europe has to offer. And Russia is even slightly lighter than Montana. So, even Russia, which is quite a lawless country compared to some of the European countries, has quite a relatively low murder rate. So that's comparison. This is composition. So this is die Zeit, and it's showing the sort of where people's voting intentions are locally. I love this one. The way that it shows Czechia to be sort of rather liberal and Slovakia to be a bit more social or social. And then this division across Romania is quite interesting. Of sort of there's not much conservative area, but more or less liberal versus left-leaning. And then France shows a particular color. I like that very much, that it shows how Europe is made up and where the little pockets of voters are. This is, then you can do it showing how the US voted in 2016. And this is one that Trump is said to have liked, but this one at county level is said to be Trump's favorite map, because it shows pretty much everything is for him. Even within the states where they voted for him, the little bits of blue are tiny. There's little pockets of blue in places like Missouri and Nebraska and so on. It's really quite a remarkable map in that sense. But of course, people remind viewers and talk about this sort of map that people vote, territory doesn't vote. So the other thing about this is that it's where there are concentrations of people in large urban areas, they tend to be Democrats, and out in the countryside, where there's just a few cows and sheep and lots of prairie, they're quite conservative and they think Trump's amazing. So you have to remember that Trump loves this because it makes the whole of the United States seem so red. But equally, that doesn't show people. It shows where people are concentrated in a strange way. But his relationship, and this is a famous one, and it's partly to remind us all that this sort of visualization has been around for a long time. This is in its time, groundbreaking one, because John Snow was looking at cholera deaths in London in 1854, and he just decided to plot where the deaths were, not just by the streets that the people had been living in, but where the water pumps were that they went to get their water from, because we didn't have running water in those days in Britain. And so you can see on Broad Street in the middle here, this is the Broad Street pump that was the source of cholera, not the water, but the fact that people were sharing the pump, not washing their hands, and the pump handle was how the cholera was being passed from family to family. But he only worked this out by mapping the pumps and the number of deaths. So this is using the relationship between location and the number of cases, or the location of the pumps and the number of cases. So this is a really important map, and reminding you that geolocation can sometimes be very, very helpful. So this one, I drew this yesterday. I'm quite fond of it, not because it makes me look good, but because it just shows the flexibility of QGIS. So you can just obviously see the black outlines of coasts. The blue are the tectonic plate boundaries. And then the red dots are the earthquakes in between 1900 and 2020 that hadn't. No, I think actually in the end I decided just this century. I beg your pardon, showing where all the earthquakes are that caused more than a certain amount of damage or more than a certain number of deaths. And so you could actually see the correlation between the tectonic plates and the worst earthquakes. And what I hadn't appreciated was that this bit here in the up the Adriatic coast, just how bad it is in terms of the sheer number of fault lines along there. So this is again showing relationships in time and space between phenomena, so place and number of earthquakes, number of serious earthquakes. And then things like heart disease. If you're a health worker in, I've forgotten which state this is, Minnesota. So if you're looking at the relationship between heart disease and where people live, you can see that there is a strong correlation that certain parts of Hennepin County are really bad for heart disease, and there's plenty of places which are not. So again, looking at relationships between things, but using the map to place it for you, not just to show that there is a relationship between heart disease and obesity and things like that, but actually where people live. But you do have to be careful, because as we've seen already with things like the Trump's favorite map, if particularly places like the United States, where there are lots of states with wide open plains and hardly anybody. I think Montana has a population of 600,000, so it's not even the size of a part of London in terms of population. So not much is going to happen there. But wherever you have concentrations of people, things are likely to be happening. So you can't say that just because there is this, this red dark area that it's because of that's where it is. It's that it shows you that it's happening there, but it's not because of where it is. It's just that that's where loads and loads of people live, and the northeast of the United States is the most highly populated. So this is one just showing you. Well, you have to decide: is it important where these are? This is a classification, the UN income groups. And you can see what they are there, the five groups. And if you place them in the appropriate countries around the world, this is the map you get. So yes, you can see that the low-income countries are generally the south, not all south of the equator, but close to it. You've got high income, it's basically Western Europe, North America, and Australasia. And you have to ask yourself, is the location the issue? Is this a relationship between national wealth and where they are? Or is there something else going on? This simply shows where they are on the map. It's not showing cause and effect. And then you get, this is The Economist trying to be witty. These are all different ways you could plot something on this is a map of London. And if you classify residents in certain ways, you will get them to be in certain places. Is that the reason they're there, or is that just a description of what is there? So you have old people in the northwest and the south, at least as the dominant colour. Rail commuters, well, they ought to do a much wider map to show if they come in from further out of London. Wealthy bosses, young professionals, and so on. Quite interesting, but you've got to decide, why are you showing me this? What are you trying to prove? So this is from Eurostat. This is one of their interactives, which I'll be sharing the location of later. And by the way, there is a handout, and you will have a copy of these slides. And they've got some recommended links as well, which will be coming in the handout. So you'll see this again, but this is just Eurostat plotting population density. So the darker reds are where there are people concentrated per square kilometre, which is quite interesting. But then you can play with the interactive. This is people age 65, where they're the high percentage of the population. So the redder it is, the closer to 50% that the old people are, and beyond. And it shows, I think it's quite a fun map, this. It shows them in the south of France, northwest Italy, all over Portugal, and this sort of band in Spain. Again, you can't decide if they're there because they're old, or they're old because they're there, or that's just how the continent is arranged in terms of demography. And then, sorry, I've also got one which I can show you, the interactive, where you can see things like the percentage of people born outside the EU or outside the host country, which is quite interesting. But I like these two, and I could play with this map for a long time. And you can zoom in and see more granular detail. But sometimes I'm going to finish with a couple of sort of warning ones. They can be good, but this is, if you read, you may not be able to see all the text, but this is talking about where tax havens are. So you've got actually two maps here, a little map showing all the tax havens in the world. Then we've got showing capital flight, so money leaving particular countries. And those are the big bubbles with numbers written on them to show the size of assets transferred to offshore tax havens. It's a very busy chart, and you have to wonder, do you need the map? Is the map helpful here? Or, do you just want a table showing me where the biggest movement of assets is and where the smaller ones are. You can see it in a similar way with this one. This is the Big Mac index in the sense of the number of Big Macs that you could earn per hour on the minimum wage in that country. So they've done a map of Europe, and then they've done the circles, which of course resemble Big Macs, but the circle size is proportional to the number of Big Macs per hour you would be able to earn with minimum wage. But actually, is their location that important, or is it just reminding you where Romania and Bulgaria are, or where France is? Would that be better just as a table showing you the most expensive and the best of the worst? Because the actual story is over on the right with the who benefits and the wage rises. Because they've used a map, they're having to take up all the space that the map occupies for what's only actually a minor part of the story. So the map is not necessarily their friend here. So
Yeah,
you
if I can
can,
add, it's super interesting, all these examples, because people really love maps, right?
they do.
Like all the journalists, they always want to make maps. I also know.
Yep.
And it's because I think it's also because it's a format that is quite known, like everybody knows a map.
Yep.
So
Yep. I'm going to pause presentation for a moment and send the link from that last slide. Oops. Why is it not letting me do that? Hold on. So this link will take you to the handout. Oh, now it's given me it twice. Strange. So now I'm going to move to QGIS. But are there any questions on that so far? As a sort of introduction. Okay. So QGIS. QGIS is a beast. It's huge. It's open source. It's free. It's incredibly powerful, but it takes a lot of learning. And you can do a lot with the maps it can produce. I've only begun to scratch the surface really with it. I'm going to show you some basics of it. In the links that you'll see in the handout, there are where to get a copy of it, and there are some very good tutorials. So I'm not going to do a tutorial now. I'm going to mention a couple of things that you need to understand about how it works, but for actually learning it hands-on, I don't think we'll have time for that today. But let me show you, first of all, any map you make is a project. You can only have one map per project. So I'm going back to some of my previous projects. And then it'll show you how it all works. So the thing here is that it works in layers. Just like things like Photoshop will do it, you need a layer for each thing. So first of all, if I've got my layer, which is coastlines, or countries in this case, because it could show borderlines. And then, yeah, I've got, at the moment, there's coastline. If I turn the coastline off, that's no layers at all. And here is a set of countries. And in fact, I probably don't even need the coastline, because you can see it doesn't really change things if I've turned the coastline off. But what's important is if I double click on the on that layer, it's taking a moment to open up, and here is what you get when you open it up. So you have all these things that you could do, and one of the most important is symbology, which is not really a word, but they use it here. So how do things look? So in this case, I mean, I can go back to no symbols and then apply that, and my map will go blank. Come on. In a moment, the map will blank itself, I think. Going to be a nuisance. Okay, I'm not going to turn it off completely. Oh, it's got to not responding. Sorry, I'm going back to symbology, and just to show you all the, it's possibly because I'm online with you guys that it's going to be really slow. I have to be really careful. Let me explain then, while I'm waiting for it to load, that what happens, you need shape files. Unless you're going to draw something yourself, you need shape files to draw the basics. So the outlines of coasts, roads, railway lines, rivers, lakes, everything are shape files. Now, about 10 years ago, I was at a conference and they were talking about doing mapping, and they kept talking about shape files. And two of us from Europe kept saying, well, where do you get shape files from? And nobody would answer us. And at that point, you needed somebody nice to give you their shape files, because otherwise they wanted to sell you their shape files. Now, you can get shape files for free. And you get them from places like, just let me bring the right. I'm just going to bring the, is that the one? I've got to, nope. I just got to, it's from a site called Natural Earth, and it's in the links for the session. But if I just bring this down. So Natural Earth has got free shape files. And they come in a range of different detail levels. The one that I use for everything is this one, the 1 to 10 million. Everything else is a bit too blurry and a bit sort of just too general. I mean, if you draw Britain, the outline of the British Isles, in anything but the 10 million, it looks ridiculous. It looks like a child has done a very bad drawing of the British coastline. So I would stick to that. You download, if we go to their downloads page there, you can get the quick start kit, which is a zip file, and as you see there, it's quite big, 219 megabytes. But you can go back and get other things. Like yesterday, I downloaded railway lines for Europe, just so that you can then just plot them on a map. So if I go back to QGIS, if I start a brand new project, I'll just show you how it works. So I'm going to I've got a folder called frequent shapefiles. So the ones I go to a lot. You've got either cultural or physical. So physical is if there was no human beings on the planet. This is coastlines, rivers, that sort of thing. Cultural are things like land borders, distributed areas, roads, railways, that sort of thing. So if I click on the folder for physical, it's very slow. It's opening the folder, but it's quite a full folder. I decided after a few days of looking for my favorite shapefiles, I needed a frequent shapefile folder. And you can see there's a huge range of possible ones here. So if I go down quite a way, I think I've got coastline. So this is the physical one. So if I double click on coastline, it goes on the map. There's all the coastlines. I could also do, let's pick in, well, actually, I switched to cultural because what human beings have done is quite interesting. So there's a whole range. Each one of these is a file. And it's worth saying that a shapefile is actually 3 files in one, joined together by a 4th file. So one of them is, so they're all called generically shape. There's one called DBF, which is database file, which has a lot of data in it. You've got PRJ, which is projection. So where are the lines going to go on the map, and that sort of thing. I can't remember what the other one is, but hidden in your shapefile is loads of extra detail. At the moment, we're just looking at the lines, and you see that it's a crazy green color. I can change that in the properties and choose any color I like. Every time I open it, it will randomly go to the next color. So I have no idea what color it will be, and you don't seem to be able to choose a default. But if I click on countries, so now you see it's gone to this default of all these brown color. So let's just go into the properties and choose, I'm going to have white. But then I want to show you what else we can do with that. So in the symbology, I can say my simple fill, change the color, and I'll just have white. Apply that. And the other thing I could do, well, that's going to give me, it'll take a moment, but all the countries will go white in a moment, or they should do. It takes a while, surprisingly.
It's a big software.
Yeah, it does a lot. But
also, the shape files are huge. Like,
yeah,
if you see all those, speckles there. Those are actually like all these little islands.
because I can zoom in, and you can see the detail is quite. There's quite a lot of detail there, and I haven't even added in things like roads yet. But what I wanted to then say is that within that, if I go to symbology again, this weird word doesn't really exist. I've got single symbol, in other words, everything is one color, but I've also got options to do categorized. So let's do categorized for a moment. Click on that, and then you choose one of the values. Well, that is going to be income group somewhere, income group. And having chosen that, I can then say down here, I've got classify. So it gives me some colors, which I could use, or I could change them. I'm also going to turn off the not availables. And I'm going to say, okay, apply that. And this is how we got to the map I showed you in the presentation. And wait a moment, it's going to then color every country according to its UN income group classification. And that's because that was already built in to the shapefile. So if I go up here to the little picture of a spreadsheet, this is the attribute table. So these are all the things that are in there. And you can see it just picks one country randomly. I think it might have been where my cursor was. Feature classification. So it's an admin 0 country. So that's top level country. You can go to another level, go down to county and so on. And it's got the name. It's got a short name. It's got names in various other languages. So you could quickly turn it into a French or German or Polish language map. It's got these different ISO initials for Congo in this case. So you could, all these are built into the shapefile, which is one of the reasons they're so big. And there I've just noticed you've got region and sub-region. So I could, for example, go back to my symbology, and let's just see if we can define, instead of income group, I'm going to say sub-region. See how many columns there are? Got variables in here. Loads and loads. Name in German, English, Spanish. I can't even think what FA would be. Some of them have got, there's sub-region. And I can say classify. It'll warn me it's getting rid of income group. Yes, you can do that. Okay, so they've got all these different classifications. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say yes to that. And they should now club together. And I okay it and zoom out. It should change the colors so that you can see, there are regions. I need to change a few of the colors because North America and Australasia are a little bit similar. North Africa, and you can see what the groups are, just geographical groupings. So you can change that really quickly using the symbology. So let's go to a different one where I needed to make the project myself. So I'll go to Open Recent, and that's this one. So I decided I would, because it's not a very long list, I've got countries which are members of Schengen and the Eurozone and the EU. I've got EU countries that are not in the Euro, which are pink. I've got some which are not in Schengen. There's only one or two of those, I think. And you've got some which are only in Schengen and not in they're in the EU, but not in the Eurozone. So I can zoom in on that. Now, I made that by just making a little spreadsheet and then called it Euro Schengen list. If I look at that, because this is what I made myself, it just has things like a membership code, which is SEU, Schengen, Eurozone, and the EU. Membership combination has all three. Is it in Schengen? Yes. Euro? Yes. EU? Yes. So that allows me to filter by those things. So I made it. So that's my data set is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns with each of the countries of Europe listed, at least EU members listed. So I made that, and then I joined it to the map of countries, so the shapefile of countries. So if I look at the shapefile of countries and look at the properties, what I had to do there was to do a thing called a join. So I joined Euro Schengen, my spreadsheet, and if I open it up, I then had to join country to target field name. So the one in capitals was the one that's in the original shapefile, and country was my name for the country in lowercase. So it's saying that equals that, and then you say I want you to bring in these joined fields from that spreadsheet. From that point on, once I press OK and apply, I've then joined my data onto the original shapefile. So you can bring in data of your own. So another example, I'll get through these quite quickly because they are quite easy to show, that making a map of Britain according to who won the seats at the last election. So I go to the Parliament website and I hunt around for shapefiles that show me constituencies, and then I joined the shapefiles to the election results, and then it colored them in. And I have a horrible feeling, because I haven't really finished this one, that these colors are not right. They might be, actually. Yeah, they might be. I think I might have managed to make the political colors correct. They should be blue for Conservative, red for Labour. So that's 2024. And that means very quickly you can bring in, say, I've got election 24 and election 2010, and I could fairly quickly adapt it so I could show a before and after by joining in the two years of elections. So that again is bringing in data that doesn't come with QGIS, but you can find it. One that I saw only yesterday, but I loved it, is this earthquakes one, which I've already showed you in the main presentation. This has got various levels. So you've got the only thing that comes with, well, at the beginning is the coastline, which is from my natural earth shapefiles. Then I had to get from the NOAA, I got a list of earthquakes, and I filtered it so that I could take 1900 to 2020. And then I got another one, which is a shapefile showing active faults. So these blue lines in the middle of the oceans are the tectonic plates and the faults. So, and if I turn off the coastlines, so you just see where the earthquakes were, you ignore the coastlines, and you can see where the different levels of severity of the different earthquakes were. So that each time I'm building up from a blank white sheet, I'm putting on what I need. So I needed the coastline, I needed to get the faults, and then I need statistics with location to show me where the earthquakes were on which dates. And I then used a thing, if I go into the earthquakes properties, I can look at the symbology and see that, oh yeah, it randomly chose red is the year is greater than 2000. So all these earthquakes are from 2000 onwards. The black dots are deaths greater than 100, and the yellow dots are earthquakes from 1999 and before, so the older ones. So you're looking at red, and sometimes you can actually see that there are earthquakes occurring in more than one century. So you've got red for now and yellow for last century. You can see that these lines are quite, there's definitely a fault that's always moving. And then I've forgotten where that is. So you switch the coastline back on and wait. And then you see, oh yes, that's Italy, northern end of Italy. So what you need for QGIS is layers, and you need to know what you want and what you can do. But you need certain layers to draw the basics, the basic coastlines and country borders and that sort of thing. Then you can bring in other data and add to it. I've got one where I just messed around to prove that I could do it with US bases. So you just have a world map. I've been reorganizing my files, and I seem to have disconnected my US bases. But I got a list of US bases from Wikipedia, which had latitude and longitude on it, and then I plotted them on a map. And now I haven't got them anymore. I don't know if I can get them back. I think it's lost them. Yeah, there they are. No, that's populated places. So each of those is a city. I might as well show you, since I've lost my US bases. If I go into that one, this is where you can do, instead of a single symbol, you can say rule-based. So I'm not going to show the city unless, and here comes the rule maker, unless it is the population. So choose fields. Let's take the population is greater than, is greater than 100,000. So when I press OK on that, and that's the number of that apply it, I should see that if I take off the filter free one, that my 100,000s, those you can now see I've marked only the places with a population of 100,000 and above. So that's a rule-based, just using a filter on what's already in the shapefile. I would probably get a more up-to-date list of populations and then join it to that to make it really up-to-date. You can zoom in on all these. It behaves just like any other map. And what you have to do then, let's imagine that I want to publish this in my newspaper or something. I've then got to go to, so at the moment it just sits at that level of zoom. I go project, new print layout, and I call it bigger cities. it needs a name, otherwise it'll just invent one. And here I have a blank, and I can say, okay, add the map. So you draw something like that, and then it just brings whatever my current level of zoom is, it brings that into the map there. If I've got the zoom wrong, I have to go back, I have to cancel out of that. Let's say I want a wider one. Let's go back like that and say, oh no, that's what I really wanted. So we go to print layout, and we'll say bigger cities 2. And now I take my thing there, and there it is at that range as well. All this stuff you have to learn. It's full of menus and strange ways of doing things, but the end results are pretty good, and it then just relies on your imagination. Just one other thing to mention is you've got things called plugins. There are loads of plugins. If I show you that, all the plugins available, there's just loads and loads of them. And they're nearly all free. I mean, they're free to install, but 1 or 2 of them require a subscription to get the material they're offering you. So I've only got, well, these are my installed ones. The ones that are really useful are OpenStreetMap. If I close that and start a new map, so here's my blank map. I can go to, I think it's actually on web, quick map services, OpenStreetMap, and then you choose, let's have OpenStreetMap standard, and I can start zooming in. And I've just got, this is normal OpenStreetMap. So for example, I could randomly choose a place like Innsbruck and look and see if I can find it fast enough. So this is just one layer. I didn't need to bring in borders or anything. It's ready drawn for me. So if you want to be at that sort of level where you're making maps, perhaps showing where there was a crash or a disaster or a flood or whatever, you can use OpenStreetMap. There's all sorts of things you can have. You've got Esri, you've got Google Maps, you can do Google Satellite. So whatever I'm zoomed in on, it'll add in Google Satellite. I can get rid of OpenStreetMap. So there's Google Satellite, and there's OpenStreetMap, and I can drag one below the others. It may not help. Yeah, so the dominant one is on top, which is the satellite. If I go back to web, I've got Bing Maps. These are all built into quick map services. That was one of the plugins that I was recommended immediately that I got QGIS. And the other one is HCM GIS, which you install as a plugin, but then it becomes its own little menu, and you've got all these different base maps you can put on here. So I can do Esri dark gray. So if I change that, it'll switch that over to Esri dark gray. Or I can say, no, I want my Google Satellite on top. So drag Esri back down. So you can play around with these to your heart's content. So it's just redrawing it because that's on dark gray at the moment. Switch that off. That's Google Satellite. Switch that off. And now I'm back to OpenStreetView. Or I could draw my own map. So if I bring in my countries one at this point, it'll just stay at that level of zoom. And you see it's gone randomly red. Last time was a different color. So I can turn off street map and just do the properties. And we can say, I just want a simple fill of whitish, sort of light. Yeah, I'm going to make it that color. And then I could change the single symbol to categorized and choose a particular value. So let's say, postal. I've not seen that before. See what that does. Classify. Oh, it just gives me all these different postal areas. I'm probably not going to do that. But it's great to play with. And I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions now. Because otherwise I'll just confuse everybody, including me, with far too much QGIS.
Thank you, Jonathan. I also would encourage people who are following, and I also know it's like warm outside, so maybe not everything is coming in. In the link that Jonathan shared, there are links to these like natural earth shape files. So what you can do, maybe if you have like half an hour, this session is recorded, so you can watch it again, and you can load in the shape files, and you can follow what Jonathan did. I think that's always a very nice way to learn. Jonathan, your camera is also frozen. I didn't want to
Oh,
tell you while you were teaching,
huh.
but
I'm going
it's
to turn
not.
it off.
It's not. It's not. It's not. It wasn't the worst image, but. Uh, and yeah, if there are any questions, please ask. I know, Marika, you actually can work pretty well with QGIS or not?
No, I've done something with it before, but no, I can't. I'm not an expert.
All right, okay. I thought I saw you working with it before. Was this useful?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Yeah. We still have 10 minutes if you like for questions or for
I can do something again, or I can go into
yeah, maybe you
other
can share
detail.
your favorite maps and say like, hey, how do I make this map? That's also an option. Like they are like what Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think QGIS is mostly for static maps, right? So you cannot
Yeah,
really
I,
do much interactivity with that.
I think you can a little bit. There's quite a lot of Python is built into it now.
Oh yeah.
It it has a Python engine, and you can get Python involved in some of your map making. So I think you can probably do animations and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
as I was saying when at the beginning when you weren't there, using AI now is I used the one where I had what was it, colors of the EU members and all that sort of stuff. I just
Mm-hmm.
did that as a simple text instruction to AI to make me a map. I didn't even say what the EU members were. Make me a map of Europe, showing me
Mm-hmm.
the following classifications: EU, not in the Eurozone, in Schengen, not in the Eurozone, whatever my 4 categories were. And I just wrote it like that. I waited, and it wrote me. This was in R, but using Claude, and it wrote me a script. It did go a little bit wrong because it kept forgetting Norway and Sweden, and I kept saying, no, Sweden is a member and should be this color, and Norway should be this color because it's in Schengen and nothing else. And it kept saying, yes, you're right, and then not doing it. So it took about 3 goes, but I could do that without QGIS and just with R and AI, and obviously I could do the same with Python. The main thing is knowing what you want to do and what you want to show, which is why I'm, sometimes I see people making maps for the sake of it, like those 2 Guardian examples in my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
With although it's only my opinion, I just think they've wasted an opportunity by doing a thing that doesn't need to be a map. It should be just a table to be much clearer to see the sort of numbers that they're talking about as a
Mm-hmm.
table. I don't really think I need a map of all the tax havens in the world, which wasted quite a lot of space in their presentation. But you make those kind of decisions. Do you have a good ink to information ratio, in the words of Edward Tufte? You know, ink to
I just
information. If
wanted
you use
to
loads of
share
ink
that.
and no information, you wasted a lot of ink.
I'm going to share a. I'm gonna look for. Let me look at. There is. You guys know Tufte? All of you? I'm gonna share because he's really into like don't use too much ink basically.
Ink to
Um,
information
ink
and
to information, yeah.
chart junk that gets
Chart
in the way
junk,
of your
yeah.
message.
Yeah.
And the
If you
same
don't
is true of
know,
map junk too.
if you don't know, I think it's interesting. However, I do think he's really like have no fun in your data visualizations kind of person.
Oh yeah, you can tell he's like Amish. He's kind of Amish map maker. No, he not. His book, the visual
Hmm.
display of quantitative information. Even the title is very serious.
Yes.
So, how to make great visualizations? No, the visual display of quantitative information
So
is the kind, but it is the Ten Commandments, and he is Moses. No, obviously not Moses. He's
Beautifully
God.
said. Beautifully said. Julia says that she really likes using QGIS for understanding what you do, drag and drop,
Mm.
click and move, and then automate the whole analysis with Python and R. Julia, was this useful? Like, were there parts where you didn't know about?
Or have I wasted your day?
Oh no, I'm still here, so
That's true.
I love going through the basics. Nice, it's good to hear. Um, all right. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank you very much for being here with us today. And if you have any questions at any point, you can join us in the pond. I will actually like toss a link here because I have that now. Um, so if people, I don't know if everybody's in there, but here it comes. Ooh. You can join the Discord channel. Um, And yeah, chat with us at any time. We are available. I'm at Ada. Jonathan is at Boomer Guy.
That's
um,
it's all that's Johan's fault
that's Johan's
because
fault.
I forgot it was there. I shouldn't say fault. He was the inspiration. Yeah,
As he is to many of us.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. If you have any questions, please drop them in the general, or drop them to us. We are happy to help always. And this was the last session actually from the pond for this or before summer. So we'll take a summer break and then we'll be back in September with more. So have a lovely summer, guys. Take it easy in this heat. And thank you very much, Jonathan, for sharing your knowledge with us. And hope to see more of you in the autumn. And
Pleasure.
yeah,
Thanks a lot, Ada. Thanks for
see
joining everyone.
you.
Bye
Bye
for now.
bye.